Well, welcome everybody. My name is Nadja Radojevic. I'm the managing director of the Erich Pommer Institut, and we do trainings with a focus on legal and financial issues, on co-production. We bring together international experts in programs like Transatlantic Partners from Canada and the States, and we run a program called TV Drama Lab.
I'm Holly Aylett, and I work with EAVE, which is the European Women's Audiovisual Network. So our focus is on gender equality in the audiovisual sector. And we do that through networking, training, and research projects. But here specifically, I'm talking about the multiple revenue stream for future films, which is the MRSF, which is our particular training course to optimize your skills to be able to play in the sort of global digital marketplace. It started with the idea of helping to give women the toolkit that they need, particularly to compete on the sort of digital technology platforms. But it's open to men and women, and that's the course I'll be talking about.
Hi, my name's Alan Fountain. I've been involved with EAVE for many years. I'm not so involved now, but I'm on the board of EAVE and work in one of the workshops. We specialise in producer workshops, of which we run several different types in Europe and other parts of the world. All the workshops that we run are listed in there. Probably the most relevant one today, perhaps, is the European Producers Workshop, which is 50 producers from around Europe doing 3 workshops each year. So that's it. I'm here all day and very happy to talk to anyone who wants to find out more. Thank you.
Well, my name is Teresa McGrane, and my job is I'm the Deputy Chief Executive of the Irish Film Board. And the Irish Film Board is the funding body for production, distribution, development of Irish feature films. We also play a strong role in training, and we are the responsible body for Screen Training Ireland. Screen Training Ireland is the organisation which provides training to the audiovisual sector across a number of areas: creativity, collaboration, production and technical, and business and enterprise. So Helen McMahon is the Director of Screenreaders. She can't be here today, she's on holidays. So I'm standing in for her to talk about one of the programmes which Screen Training Ireland runs. It's the European programme Screenreaders, which is around business development, and leadership, and we'll talk about that later.
My name is Corinne Ranaraja. I'm the Programme Director for Institut Pictures. We are a film business development programme, and each year we take 20 participants from across Europe and conduct modules in London and in Los Angeles.
Great, thank you. So I think I want to start off, I'll start off with at Corinne's end and work our way back along the table. I just wonder if you could sort of give us a bit of information about why you run the courses, what are the needs that you've identified that lead you to the courses and the design of the courses?
We run the course because we found that the course is aimed at film executives, senior film executives, so people who spend at least 5 years in the film industry, and they come on the course to up their game, both in terms of networks, to grow their networks, and to take them, I think so often people go through their professional career without actually looking outside of the group of people they work with. So our course takes people from across the value chain, producers, financiers, legal business affairs people, and they benefit from having that time outside of their usual networks and getting to know people who, like you were talking about earlier, they can call up later on and get advice on how to fund their film, how to do a legal negotiation. And that's what they mean, that's the big takeout for them, is growing their network and carrying that through the rest of their career.
Well, Screenreaders is slightly different, I think, to most of the courses in that it's not project-led. It's about you as a person, it's about you as the promoter of your company and your business. It probably responds to a question which a lot of people ask themselves at some point in time, which is, what the hell am I doing here? I'm not making any money. I can't get anything off the ground. I just think I'm going to chuck this up. And I suppose it responds to that because it's looking at the totality of everything that you're doing. you know, your ecosystem, your positioning, what you want to do, what you aspire to do, what your self-motivation is, what your company looks like. And we take 10 teams onto the course every year. And they range from production companies, predominantly production companies, but also post-production companies, distribution, film festivals. So it's a big mix of people that come together, and they're all asking the same questions of themselves as to, you know, what are they doing, how can they scale, how can they grow, and how can they be better sustainable?
Great.
Okay. EAVE was invented a long time ago now, in the sort of late 1980s, believe it or not, by a very visionary guy who was very committed to independent filmmaking in Europe. And he felt that trying to create a network, a strong network of independent producers throughout Europe, was something which he felt was an important objective. In a sense, that's, you know, I would say that EAVE has been very successful at that. There's a network of, you know, over 1,000 European producers and producers from other parts of the world involved in EAVE. And the European Producers Workshop, which, as I was saying briefly earlier, is sort of 50 producers from all over Europe and some other non-European countries, that sort of thing that Dan was referring to earlier, come together each year. There are 3 workshops. You can come with a project or without a project. What it addresses really at the level of skills is it's aimed at producers who established in their own country as producers and who now want to co-produce, who want to, as Alex was saying, who really want to build a network and have the, if you like, build a network with a group of people who are at a very similar level in their career, but who are going to go on developing and working together for the rest of their career. There are many, many examples of producers from different parts of the EAVE network working together, forming companies together, co-producing together over, subsequently after they've been to the European Producers Workshop. The other thing is it's sort of entry into other activities. Virtually EAVE has partnerships with virtually every significant market in Europe and other parts of the world, and it's another way, once you've been involved in an EAVE workshop, to continue further involvement. There are other international workshops which you might also want to get involved with. So the whole thing in many ways is about sort of coming into a sort of gradually larger and larger activity, which hopefully is going to enable you to keep abreast of your knowledge, your skills, and to find people who can actually help to finance your films.
EWA was working on various training schemes, and I suppose what we felt was that although everybody's aware of the kind of multiple platforms out there, the crowdfunding possibilities, multiple channel, sort of multiple funding, a lot of people, and a lot of women particularly, were unconfident in terms of actually the strategy to address for that. So what we wanted to do was to take that idea of sort of networking, and we're a pan-European organisation, so we wanted to hold like courses in collaboration with different partners across Europe. But to take the idea of a sort of 3-stage workshop, we want to keep the price down, so they're 3-day workshops. It's 2,000 to take part, which is relatively cheap. And you're part of a year's structured process where you develop your project, not ignoring at all the sort of traditional production funding. So we've got co-production funding specialists, broadcaster specialists, but then we do have partners, one of which is Seed and Spark, who are one of the leading sort of digital online crowdfunding operatives over in the States, and Distrify over here, who are helping you really to grow your project right from the beginning, in terms of actually how you're going to raise your funding across different platforms. So the first stage is developing your audience, finding out like what your audience is and then where you're going to congregate it, if you like. The second stage is sort of going one stage further into sort of private equity funding, sort of meeting branders. We have a link with Elevator Advertising, who actually specialise in audiovisual placement for advertising and partners. And then the third sort of 3-day workshop at the end of the process is to enable you to get your go-to-market sort of model sorted out. And we work with Filmin, who are based in Barcelona and who are a state-of-the-art sort of distribution company. And then in between that, you're having tasks and assignments that you have to do every month. So it is a commitment, and you've got your mentors. So you're developing what it says, a sort of multiple revenue stream. And it's across a huge variety of projects, actually. I mean, we've got experimental artist film, fiction project, we've got social action movies, documentary and fiction. And I think I agree with some of the other panelists that, you know, one of the basic tools that you get from any of these courses is your community and your network and your basic leg up. But the toolkit and developing skill sets which you need in order to get your project value propositions sorted out, your kind of development scheme for how you're going to fund and market, is really important.
Well, at the Erich Pommer Institute, we run, I think, 4 different short-term courses and 2 big international programs. So I think it's a bit too much to dive into all of that, but I think maybe to highlight what's at the core of it is really the acknowledgement in the end that legal and financial basic knowledge is absolutely crucial for any professional working in this industry to really be able to navigate all those instruments properly and to bring that to success in the end. So that's at the core of everything. And maybe to just drop some examples, upcoming is a course on European co-production, where it's a 3-day course and you get all the information you need on the legal and financial side about European co-productions. All is based on 3 international European case studies. So the producer, him or herself, will really guide you through the entire process of the co-production, will show you all the background documents from the legal side and really, that you really get a sense of it. Another course is on digital strategies. I think, again, also really important. There's so many opportunities out there for you guys. And I think in the past 5 years, for example, we have heard a lot of talk about crowdfunding and stuff, but we also deliver the legal background of it because, don't do crowdfunding without consulting your lawyer, really. There are many, many tax issues involved. I think this is really important to highlight, and Erich Pommer Institute seminars, are there to do this.
Great. So I think that seems really clear that there's a need for business skills to go alongside the creative skills. And I know from my personal background, I went into this business thinking I'm going to become a creative, I'm going to be the creative, but I love the business side of it. It's actually really interesting. So, I would sort of say if you feel a little bit, oh God, it's the legals and things are a bit, don't want to get involved with that. It's actually really interesting, and if you're a geek like me, it can be quite good fun. Sort of leading on from that, can you sort of tell us a bit more about the need for connection, particularly across borders, and also maybe if you could tell us a little bit about how you facilitate that in an ongoing fashion. So once someone's attended a course, is it bye-bye, or what do you do working again along from...
Okay. Well, we have 2 longer running programs. It's the TV Drama Series Lab and another program called Transatlantic Partners. For those programs, we established kind of a network of an alumni network, meaning that throughout the years, like, for example, at the Berlin Film Festival in Cannes, we have alumni networking meetings. And for the TV Lab, for example, we re-invite our alumni back to the actual program. So in the ongoing program, in the end, there's always a 2 days days reserved so that actually the alumni can come and join the new group of people. And we experienced that this is a very, very valuable tool, that basically many connections arise from those networks, that people are working together, that people are developing projects together. Some even marry and have babies. So I think it's quite an important network.
I've been to 3 weddings so far from my network.
When also in the EPI guidelines, if there's a baby coming out of that, it has to be named Erich. I'm really sorry. I'm kidding.
Anyone who comes on an EWA course immediately becomes part of the EWA membership, male or female. And we run lots of sort of networking events. EWA, because of its pan-European nature, everything is based in different countries. The director is based in Strasbourg, some of the bureau members are in Strasbourg, some of them in Barcelona, someone else is in Berlin. So the nature of our organisation is pan-European. And then you've got the second sort of level of networking, which is actually being part of the course, and we have an alumni program as well, which keeps you all in networks, and you've set up sites during the course yourself, with your mentors, involving the companies who are backing us in terms of actually lending their strategies to your project. So you've got that base, and then you've got this year we're in Glasgow and we're in Amsterdam, and I'm just blanking out on where else we're the third. Anyway, we're always in 3 countries for each course, and the idea of that is, as with some of the other courses, is to inbuild local contacts and invite the independent producer community from that country to actually come and play their part, do presentations, etc. So you get specific geographical connections. Just one last thing. I mean, I think there's a conceptual aspect of this, which is that I think it's what I call the kind of world in your compass, if you like, because everybody has been transformed by the globalization of all the opportunities, all the difficulties, all the sort of legal barriers. And so you have to start by thinking really early on of yourself as the sort of individual, and you're part of the family, you're part of maybe London or your local picture, you're part of your regional picture, then you're part of the global picture. And there are certain strategies to try and learn how to harness all that so that you can play the game, if you like. The rules of the game are there, but they're constantly changing, and you kind of need to know them. But that's one of the skills I hope that you gain.
Okay. With the European Producers Workshop, because it's 3 weeks, different points in the year, you do get to know your colleagues extremely well, for better or worse. Many of the groups, not all of them, of course, but many of the groups, continue to meet up at festivals and other events during the course of the year, and they do that under their own steam. EAVE has sort of get-togethers at most of the festivals around Europe. We have, as I mentioned earlier, EAVE has sort of partnerships with virtually all the markets in Europe, and the point about the partnerships for people who've been on EAVE workshops is that there's in a way, it's the possibility of sort of direct access to either to get invited and paid for to go to one of those markets, or to get your project into a market. So I think that's something which is, if you like, the step beyond the workshop, but which is going to be crucial for you later on. The other thing which is important, or the value of the get-togethers and the value of sort of getting into the EAVE network, is not only meeting people who you attend that year, but also meeting other EAVE graduates who've been in previous years, so that you can begin to develop a wider network. One of the other things which I also mentioned briefly was we have a number of other workshops, particularly 3 international workshops. So, for instance, if you're interested in co-producing in Latin America or the Far East or in Eastern Europe, we have workshops which, in a way, specialise in bringing people together from Western Europe and those other regions of the world. And the other thing which is perhaps worth mentioning is that in the third week of the European workshop, we bring together the participants in the workshop with something like sort of 50 or 60 so-called decision makers, basically financing people, sales agents, commissioning editors, people who head funds and so forth from all over Europe. And this is, again, to my mind, another crucial network to become involved in, because, you know, you may have a great project, but you've got to find some way to finance it, and you've got to find some way to meet the people who've got the money. So that end of the year workshop is an opportunity not necessarily to finance your project, but to meet a very wide range of people who are going to be helpful to you in the future. So that's another network which is worth bearing in mind in a way.
Well, on Screenreaders, the first thing we do is we create an immersive experience. So the first module is in Ireland. It's residential, so even for Irish participants, it's residential. And obviously that just means, you know, people, you know, come together in a very concentrated setting. So it's absolutely inevitable. There's been no babies, I don't think. It's absolutely inevitable that relationships will form and friendships will form. And that's over a period of 4 days. And they are quite long days as well, because you do a lot of classes during the day, and then you do one-to-one sessions with the core tutors working on your business plan. You do it in pairs, so it's you and the other promoter of the company, which may be, you know, depending on, it, you know, could be co-director or it could be your development personnel, it depends. And then quite strategically, we look at where we will do the second module and the one-to-one sessions, because obviously not everybody, you know, everybody's coming from all over Europe. So it may be Amsterdam or it may be, you know, Berlin, but we usually are quite strategic about where we will target the second country. And in that instance, sometimes we can bring in the knowledge that we've got in the film board, where are we seeing trends in co-production, or who's changed their, you know, co-production sort of funds, for example, and we'll go there. We will always do an industry session in the second module with the local industry. So, for example, we go in, the first module is Ireland in June, the second module is November, somewhere in Europe. We're doing Glasgow this year. And then we will do an industry session with Creative Scotland and with Scottish producers. And I guess the impacts that we see over time, again, is about people coming together, sharing knowledge, sharing resources, coming together in co-productions. I mean, we've had a lot then who come from doing the programme of Screenreaders and then come back into the film board, at least, you know, the Irish producer coming back into the film board with partners that they've met on Screenreaders. And that alumni network, you know, continues on, because of course you've met people in this very, you know, immersive way, so you just, you know, form those kind of lifelong friendships that stay, that you can always draw on. We do then networking sessions at the Galway Film Fla and in Cannes.
I think everyone who gets on Inside Pictures feels like they've joined a club within their year group, but they've also joined a club of sort of an alumni network which is almost 200 strong. And we reinforce that by running networking events in each module in London and in Los Angeles of varying scales, ranging from intimate dinners to larger networking drinks. And we also run a mentoring scheme across years. So when you come on the programme, you'll be matched with a mentor from one of our alumni network from a previous year, depending on what you're looking for, whether you're a producer looking for expertise in finance or distribution, will be matched with someone from our network on that basis. So that's the way of reinforcing the cross-year partnerships as well.
Great. We are heading towards the end of time, but I was just going to ask one more question to the panel, and then if there's any questions from the floor. If anyone's got any examples of success stories, particularly of participants working together after the courses, if you'd like to highlight those, that would be great, I think, for people. Anyone feel free to chip in.
Well, we have it's a film that is out now. It's called Coconut Hero, and it's a German-Canadian co-production coming out of our Transatlantic Partners program. So the German producer and the Canadian producer, they met at our program and sort of developed this film together, and it's now in cinemas at the moment in Germany. So, for example, it's one of a few films that have come out of the Transatlantic Partners scheme so far.
Great. So some films, a few
Yeah.
babies,
Yeah.
few weddings.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyone else would like to?
I'd say one of our participants from 2011 or 12, I can't remember exactly, Bert Hammerlink from Caviar Content, when he came on the programme, his business was based in Belgium, and now, 4 or 5 years down the line, he's got a truly international basis, a business with bases in Paris, London, and Los Angeles, and that's a good success story from a business perspective.
Great.
We have a couple actually which are interesting. One was a man called Nick Holdsworth, who was actually a journalist, which was kind of unlikely in terms of the usual criteria, but he had some audiovisual experience in his journalistic practice. And he had a fantastic story about Napoleon's lost treasure, which is apparently pots of gold, which are on the march that Napoleon made to Moscow. Between France and Moscow, and there are various sites where archaeologists know where this gold is. So he'd been fascinated by this in terms of history. He's then converted that onto a fantastic online crowdfunding site which has games, apps, etc. But to do that, he teamed up with a couple of the women who were on the course who had more directing experience, and they've been working together on it. So they formed a kind of team in order to do it.
Sorry, Alan, yeah?
I'll be very brief. The thing about EAVE, I think, is that what we think the primary objective is professional development for the people coming. Most people who come on the European Producers course bring projects to develop. That isn't, in a way, the sort of it's an important part of it. It's the means of doing it, and it's a good way of developing a project. But the main thing that we're concerned about is, the individuals coming and working together. Having said that, what it says here, it says over 35% of projects developed through EAVE workshop have been successfully produced. 55% of the projects developed there get an international sales agent on board. 23% get distributed in more than 5 territories. 50% of producers who met at EAVE are co-producing together afterwards. So it gives you some idea.
That's great.
I think with Screenreaders, the way, in terms of the impacts or people who've done the programme, the two biggest important things for us is, one, that the person comes away having done the programme, having gone through it with more focus. So focus is really important. And then the second part is confidence. And it's it's the two of those elements coming together. I mean, I could rattle off tons of, examples of, producers who've gone on and done great things. We bring them back, and then they do case studies with the next intake of Screenreaders. So, for example, we had a production company, Cartoon Saloon, really creative, doing excellent work, have had 2 Oscar nominations for Best Animated Feature, couldn't monetize anything they were doing because their focus was absolutely on the creative. And we then, they went through the programme, they knew what they had to do, they needed to get an operating officer on who could roll out everything that they were doing, monetize it all over the place, and now they're, actually a sustainable company. So, but there are tons of them, those examples, and they're kind of all different. Some of them are just around co-production, coming together, making a feature, but I think the main thing is that you come out of the programme more focused and with, buckets of confidence.
Great. So I think what's clear from all of you is that there are some important aspects of the course that go beyond the actual training materials on the day. It's about the network, the language of business as well as the language of creativity, and the ongoing participation, the ongoing training are some of the important strands that I've kind of heard here. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's fantastic.